everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. I'm here with my buddy Adam. Adam, how are you, sir?
Hey, doing good, man. How are you?
Trying to stay warm, man. Old man winter really hit us here in the Northeast after Sunday, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, he don't say nothing, but he must know something. Because I know my balls were clinking like a couple of wine glasses this morning.
Oh my God, it was brutal. I had to go to the hospital and get blood work this morning, and I usually walk because it's only about a block from my house. I was like, nope, not today.
Yeah, that's so close. If you were not willing to walk across there, that must have been pretty bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
But I totally understand. Yeah, because I wasn't about to go anywhere. Like I could I walk for coffee a lot of days, and not today, not happening, not this week actually.
Yeah. Before we get started with the wrap up of Week 16, excuse me. There's some NFL news that's actually happened. I wanted to touch on really quick. And for those that are unaware, the Steelers released Harrison, for their prolific pass rusher that's been with them forever, and he went and signed with the enemy, the Patriots, this afternoon.
Disgusting.
I know, when I told you this, you're like, oh no.
Nothing more. Yeah, cancel the show.
Yeah, those are his exact words, folks.
It's
cancel the show.
Yeah, so cancel the show. I can't do it. No, it's just it smacks of nothing but just another underhanded espionage maneuver to because Harrison can't really play anymore. I mean, I know that they need some linebacker help, but he's not going to cover anybody down the seams or anything. I mean, that's what they really need, and I just smacks of a to troll Pittsburgh and say, ha ha, look who we got, and try to get in their heads a little bit, and B, just to get as much inside information as they can.
Well, and this is the other thing I didn't tell you, and the troll is on because Harrison, he either had signed or it was right after he signed or right before he signed, took a picture with him and Brady and put it on his social media pages and was like, hey, I'm finally playing with someone that's older than me.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But was it a live picture or just like a split screen picture, like where they're both in the same?
They're both in the same thing.
Okay.
Like an Instagram photo.
Okay, but it wasn't like a live, like standing next to each other?
Yeah, they were next to each other, but I don't know if it was live.
I mean, like, is it a real photo? Like
it's legit.
Yeah, like, so they're actually in the same room, like, smiling for the photo?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not happy about it.
I know, and I told Dean this, and he just said it in the chat. We were laughing about it. I told him, me and you were, that Harrison is a spy.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we lived, like I told you, I wish we lived in that world where we could think, oh, maybe he's a double agent and he's going to undermine them somehow, or
and take them down.
But it's just, we could give, we did it from within, but we could give 1,000 historical examples where it's been exactly the opposite.
I know, don't remind me.
Yeah, Welker, Blunt, Corey Dillon. It's always, it never works against them when this happens. So unless he's going to like run out onto the practice field and like frantically, inflate all the footballs to full inflation or something, I don't, it can't be anything but bad. Because they're not going to try to give him, playing reps that are going to hurt the team. I mean, they're not going to force him into the game, so it's not going to hurt them.
No.
But anyway, yeah, it sucks though. I hate to see a player I like go there.
No, I agree with you. The other news I wanted to touch on real quick. There's rumors floating around that Bruce Arians is going to resign after the game on Sunday, or mutually agreed to part ways.
Who did again now? I'm sorry.
Bruce Arians, the head coach of Arizona.
Okay.
But there's been reports
Welcome
that
to
said
Oakland.
he is, and then there's been reports that say that's not true, and that he's going to decide what to do after the game.
He's one of the rumored replacements for Del Rio if Del Rio goes. There's a lot of babble about that on the interweb for what that's worth.
I was going to say I could see him walking away because of his health.
Like completely walking away? Yeah.
Like becoming like an analyst for like, you know, a pregame show or something. Because, you know, he's not getting any younger, and he had a lot of serious health problems the last year or so.
It's possible, but it would, like you said, it would have to be something really productive, because a guy like him, he's not the walk away type, I don't think. He's a very aggressive personality, you know, kind of like an alpha, I guess you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are just going to be enough. I feel that there will be enough vacancies. Now, will they be attractive vacancies?
Depends on what he thinks is attractive.
Right. I mean, since he's already out in that region, and obviously, you know, Oakland's season was a very disappointing one, and they do have a quarterback, which he's probably been, who can be very good. I think that would be somewhat appealing. And he can work with his old buddy Chuck Pagano's brother with the defense. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that around, but I don't know. You know, all these other teams right now, the only teams that we know are going to have vacancies are vacancies that are not too cute. So I don't know.
Yeah, because real quick, Chris said in our chat he's been hearing that Arians might be the Bears' #1 target.
Yeah, I heard that too. It's possible. I don't know that he wants, you know, to deal with a young quarterback, and
to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, that's a multi-year rebuild.
It looks like it. It looks like it. I mean, although they do have some of the tools to get better right away. You know, and of course get some receivers in there, and you never know, you know, what the sophomore season holds for a young quarterback. So it could be it could be construed as one.
Yeah. All right. Before we get started with the breakdown of all the games this week, don't forget to check out our sponsors over at the Squared Circle Wrestling Magazine. You can find them on Twitter at TSC Wrestling Mag. Use promo code ASCPOD for 20% off your order. Alright, we actually didn't have any Thursday night games this past week, so let's go to the Saturday afternoon games. We had Baltimore beating the Colts 23-16.
A good game by Flacco, one of his more accurate games, despite the fact, you know, there wasn't much down the field efficiency, probably because of the weather. But he was 29 out of 38. I thought that was very efficient, especially considering how wet and slippery and crappy everything was.
They played in like a monsoon.
Yeah, and Brissett, on the other hand, he played a typical bad weather game. His completion percentage was just under 50%. So I found that kind of interesting, maybe the way the two players and the two offenses handled the weather could have been a difference there. But the Colts really played hard, and maybe the weather was a factor in this too, but I thought they would give up more points. But I thought they played really well. Hilton had a 100-yard game. You know, they just came up a little bit short. They didn't. I don't remember them making a huge turnover late in the game that really hurt them badly. Like Brissett has been doing at the end of halves and end of games in more recent time. But yeah, they just came up a little bit short. But you have to be pleased with their efforts Saturday night.
I was going to say that, and I like what I've seen Brissett as the season has worn on. I mean, granted, his percentage could be better, but he's got a really bad line in front of him. I think he could be a starter in the league long term.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, that we think he's got the tools, and there are going to be spikes in his in his stock market report, so to speak. He's going to have ups and downs, especially probably trying to do a little bit too much at times with that team. But I've always felt that he has a very good grasp of the offense and a very good arm for making those throws. And hey, this is the battle for Baltimore too. I almost forgot. It's Baltimore's new team against their old team. I don't know if that mattered to any of those guys, because there wouldn't be many people.
Most of them probably weren't alive.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any players, but I'm just saying for the I would be interesting to know if anything was said by the organization, either organization, because the Colts weren't exactly kicked out of town; they kind of snuck out.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
Yes,
that's funny. All right, the Saturday night game, we had Minnesota beating up on Green Bay in another weather-filled game, 16-0.
Yeah, and just a cruddy game. I mean, where.
And what did you tell me when I picked you up on Sunday about this game?
I don't remember. What did I say?
You fell asleep, or you changed the channel like 10 times and kept going back, and you're like, oh, this is still on.
Oh, I had remote-itis. Yeah, I must have left the game and come back like 10 times, and every time 10-0, 13-0. I'm like, oh. I mean, this is agonizing, and I'm just remote scanning past it. It's hurting my heart, But Minnesota ran the ball 30 times, and you know what I want to mention coming out of this game, and maybe you guys in the chat will have noticed this, is that Hundley looks very uncomfortable playing in home games, almost like he's overwhelmed with the sense of responsibility,
like too much pressure,
or too much, like the moment, like all of the moment playing in a Packers home game. It's almost like he treats it like this vaunted, thing of mythical proportions,
like a sacred ground.
And and I think it's showing in his performance. And another crappy one, again under 50%, 2 interceptions, not getting his better players involved, and I don't know, and why Jordy Nelson was out there like limping around with a busted up arm late in the game.
It was his shoulder.
Absolutely no idea.
That team,
and Chris,
I mean, you talk about a team that's a mess, where they got to like figure out what the hell they're going to do. They're in a really kind of weird transitional phase, I think.
Well, yeah, and this latest Rodgers setback, I think they weren't. I mean, he's had obviously some injury issues, but I think it really threw them for a loop. I think that they kind of felt like, okay, we've gotten past, we got the barn door closed behind us. We're outside in the sun now, and we can move on from this. But Chris is mentioning in the chat about that Hundley better get used to it if they end up being forced to release Rodgers over the IR violation, which I think there is zero chance of happening, by the way. But do you want to touch on that briefly?
Yeah. Apparently, with the IR stuff, is they put Rodgers back on IR, and the rule states that if you put someone back on IR, they have to have a new injury that's going to sideline them for 6 weeks. So apparently, a bunch of the teams in the league complained to the league office, saying that he wasn't hurt, and that if you get punished for this, you have to release said player.
Right.
Which I agree. I think has zero chance of happening, because I think it happens all the time. But I think it's just people teams trying to stick it to the Packers.
Well, it's a big name player too.
That as well.
There might be people with surreptitious ideas.
Yeah. The reason I say they're kind of like in transition is because Devontae Adams, if I remember correctly, is a free agent at the end of this season.
Right.
And Nelson has kind of not been the same player since he came back from tearing his knee.
Right.
So I don't. I mean, I think you have to find a way to keep Adams because he's been, I'd say, their best offensive weapon.
Yeah, I mean, he's been getting the living crap concussed out of him, though.
That too, yeah.
I mean,
What's he on, like
I
two
mean,
or
I don't.
three?
Well, I would say so, and just the fact that just the two that I'm thinking of from this year, the Trevathan assassination, and then that horrific hit he took against Carolina. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a mental thing there where sometimes players might just want to say, gee whiz, this place is giving me migraine headaches. I got to get out of here. Go play somewhere warm or something.
I know what you mean.
But I think they need a tight end too, and they just can't seem to keep any sense of continuity with the offensive line. There's a lot of things there that they need to address still.
No, I agree with you, and I think Rodgers, with a lot of other great quarterbacks, covers up a lot of their warts, as I call it.
Yeah, and it's not impossible for me to imagine him moving on eventually and finishing up somewhere else.
He's not getting any younger.
I see him I'm just almost like saying this from like a behaviorism aspect, that he doesn't strike me as the kind of personality that's going to necessarily cling heavily to the idea of having to stay with the Packers at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, moving on. We have the Bengals upsetting the Lions at home 26-17.
Yeah, I had to laugh when they were trying to make some kind of a thing about this being the Bengals trying to save Marv Lewis's job at the last minute.
Or like like playing hard for his potential last home game or...
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of understand that a little bit. Like, okay, let's get him out of here with, but to say that this could have any kind of impact on his pending job situation is just, especially against the Lions, who are kind of like they're like the NFC's nihilist philosophy team, and the Bengals are the AFC's like, self-destructive.
You mean both teams that are always driving in reverse?
Yeah, they embrace the philosophy of nihilism. They almost don't seem comfortable unless they're self-destructing.
Hey, what? We're doing good?
Yeah, if somebody, hey, Caldwell, don't challenge that catch. We can actually win the game if you do that.
Oh, my God.
I can't believe he didn't take a shot in the dark challenge on that Golden Tate non-catch.
Well, I've told you this before when you've been here watching games. I don't understand the rep that Caldwell has as a coach, or even a head coach for that matter, in the league. Everything I've always seen of him has been subpar to me.
Well, don't you think it's just pretty much completely linked to Peyton Manning in a way?
Yeah.
Like just getting by on reputation. Like, hey, I worked with Peyton Manning, and I feel like I want to write
you told me before, I think you called him the ball whisperer.
Yeah. I honestly just want to send him a letter that says, no, buddy, Peyton Manning worked with you. You did not work with
Yeah.
me. Yeah, I mean, and Peyton Manning called everything else. Who's to say he didn't call what you were doing?
Well, it reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit with Peyton Manning and the little kids where he's just like, humming balls at kids like 100 miles an hour and they can't catch it. You suck!
Yeah, yeah. A part of you could almost imagine Manning brutalizing Caldwell in film meetings that.
That's what it reminded me of. But no, I shook my head at this game because I'm like, the Bengals. The previous 2 weeks were getting like murdered. It was some ridiculous. It was like 80 something or 70 something to like 10 or 15. They had given up points, and then the Lions, who were still in the playoff hunt before this game, go and lay an egg and get eliminated.
I mean, if you go in and you get eliminated by another team that's either a playoff caliber team or a team that's also fighting for its playoff life, different. You can't. Somebody's got to lose. But the Bengals, and I mean, nothing really new under the sun. I mean, Dalton had to throw like 41 times, and he still didn't come up with 240 yards. Giovanni Bernard had a good game, 116 yards on the ground, 5 yards a carry. But it just basically came down to typical Lions footballs: untimely penalties, untimely mistakes, head scratching coaching decisions, such as the not challenging the Tate incompletion, or at least taking a shot at that. I mean, it's more of the same with them. There's nothing really, statistically or schematically you can really say about it. I mean, it's just they are good with losing intangibles, just like a lot.
And it's amazing to me because
they
it's
win
just
with intangibles.
It's almost like it reminds me of certain franchises in sports. No matter like what coach you put there or what talent you put there, because they have talent, they always revert back to these tendencies.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
it's just like it's shocking to me.
It's a systemic thing. I mean, it has some of these organizations, when this just goes on and on and on, it's got to be bigger than any one coach, any one player, any one system, any one coordinator. It's just a systemic thing. It's just what they do. It's what the Lions do.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the Chiefs beating the Dolphins 29-13.
Yeah, I don't know what you really take out of this game, other than the fact that mathematically Miami was still in this game, in the hunt before this game, and the Raiders' hopes also hinged on the outcome of this game. But I think that the Chiefs have pretty much fully emerged from their midseason slump.
And Andy Reid comes out as Santa Claus for the post game.
Yeah, which the only thing that I could see that syncs up there is just the sheer girth of the individual. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I see absolutely nothing. Kareem Hunt, they really went heavy with him. He carried the ball 29 times, barely averaged 3 yards a carry. That's kind of interesting. And he caught 4 balls, also for a very low average. So they just kind of tinked away at this and got a couple big plays to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And other than that, Cutler, typical, no interceptions, but 50, right on the numbers, actually, exactly 50% completions. So it's just, the Chiefs just they took care of business, I guess is what you would call this game. They kind of locked them down defensively in the second half. There were only, I think, 3 field goals kicked in the second half, so most of the scoring in the first half. So, it's Chiefs handling business, not particularly impressively.
The one thing I will say before we move on that's interesting to me is that Andy Reid and them actually ran the ball that much.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, is the more shocking thing.
Well, I think that there's it's a little bit misleading sometimes how when we say that Reid throws a lot more than he runs. I don't know if that's always the case, but I would say that what
Santa Clara, Jimmy G,
situationally, he often throws when he should be running the ball, and I think that's what feeds into his reputation a lot as being a pass-heavy guy.
Yes,
because he just calls pass plays in some head-scratchingly obvious run situations, and it's cost him big games. We've seen that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to touch on that really quick.
Absolutely. Oh, sure.
Let's see here. Next, I don't know if Steven's in here, but the Patriots beat up on the Bills 37-16.
Yeah, this was kind of a game of, what would you say, Joey? This was like 2 or 3 games within one game. Yes. Honestly. I liked the first stanza. I thought was really interesting. I thought that the Bills were doing some interesting things, although they still sometimes get away from running the ball in situations where they should clearly thrive running the ball. And I don't just know if it's because Belichick kind of went run heavy and dared them to throw it, but so there were a few situations there that I didn't really agree with. Tyrod Taylor didn't really hurt them terribly in this game, I don't believe. And then there were a few situations where Tolbert Tolbert was involved, where I thought that was kind of a head scratcher.
The one thing that comes to mind, not to cut you off, was
please.
Right at the beginning of the game. It was either the first or the second drive the Bills had. They were down in the red zone, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and they throw it both times and don't get it.
Yeah. And why do you do that? I mean, my thing is, so what if the other team goes run heavy? You are a running football team. You have a future Hall of Fame running back in your backfield. You know, who cares if they go run heavy?
And then the other thing
you're run heavy.
That
your
and,
offense is run heavy.
I'll mention this, and then we'll talk about the touchdown. The part, and we talked about this because you were here for this game. On that 4th and 1, Taylor eats the ball.
That was the theme of the weekend. Quarterbacks taking a sack. And
like you said, just chuck the ball up. What happened at the very worst? They pick it off and they get it in the end zone, and it's a touchback, and they get the ball at the 25. At least you kind of unloaded your barrel, so to speak.
I mean, don't throw it across your body and have it taken back 90 yards for a touchdown.
No.
That's a game changer. But try to make when you're in 4th down in that area, or when you're at the end of the game and you either have to get yay so far or you're going to lose the game, that's when a quarterback has to understand the rules for protecting the football change a little bit.
Yep.
You can't eat the ball in a situation, and we saw that like 3 or 4 times over the weekend where pretty good, seasoned quarterbacks took sacks in situations where it's like, what are you doing? That's the one thing you're doing that can guarantee failure on that drive.
No, I agree. And the other thing, and I've seen the replay of it 15 times. Kelvin Benjamin scores a touchdown. The refs call it a touchdown on the field, and everybody knows that they always review scoring plays now, which I think is the right thing to do by and large. However, from everything I've read, New York looked at these replays and overturned the call, which to me, if you watch these replays, there is nothing conclusive that says that this man did not score a touchdown.
Yeah, right. So just to clarify what you're saying, no referee in a striped shirt on the field had any type of apprehension that was not a touchdown.
No, it was the league office in New York.
It was completely undone by the suits, and can't help mentioning this. I mean, I don't, I like a good conspiracy theory just as much as the next guy, but I don't like to be like this. But again, it's in a Patriots game, and I just don't get it. It's as clear as could humanly be possible on a TV screen that was a touchdown.
Well,
for those of you who don't believe in absolutes, 99.509%, there is nothing, no reason whatsoever to overturn that.
And like I told you, it's hard enough, and like I said, this isn't a conspiracy thing, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's hard enough when you play the Patriots that you almost have to play mistake-free fundamental football. But when you have things like that happen, it's so deflating.
Look, they're pun intended, right? Look, they're such a well-prepared team. And they're well schooled in what the other team is going to try to do. They're a difficult team to play. They're a mentally exhausting team to play.
I agree.
And you really can't afford crap like this.
It was just basically the Bills ran out of gas toward the end. They just kind of wilted.
They did, and in the second half, New England pounded the ball a little bit more, and they just kind of beat them down. And I'm not saying that the Bills were within any kind of right to like collapse after that or give up. I mean, obviously you can't do that, but it's difficult. It's difficult.
Absolutely. All right, next we have the Bears beating the Browns 20-3.
So, yeah, the Bears probably with one of their better opportunities to sneak away with the win, but getting more of the same results. Kaiser, Soze, two more interceptions. Didn't run the ball particularly well. Josh Gordon has slowed down after a promising looking start, so he probably needs a full off season to work. He only had 2 catches for 19 yards.
And I wonder if it's, obviously quarterback play too.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's all going to have to be worked on and brought together.
And I'll mention this real quick.
Sure.
Josh Rosen, the quarterback from UCLA, who's been wildly heralded as potentially the #1 pick in the draft, has already said that if the Browns are interested in him, he will go and play his senior season in college, then play for the Browns.
Right, it's like what we were talking about. It's like the anti-coming out. I guess we should call it like the going in.
The Elway.
Instead of if this team commits to me, I'll come out. If this team commits to me, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. I'm locking myself in the dorm with my PlayStation and cracking out the books.
And he was just interviewed. I had sent it to you that he said he would rather go later in the draft to a team that was a better, I guess, overall team was the way he put it, as opposed to going to a team higher up in the draft that was the drizzling shits.
Right.
Which is kind of shocking for a guy to say.
Yeah, it's a little shocking for him to kind of be that direct, but nobody's going to hold it against him at this point. Nobody's going to accuse him of being disagreeable or...
Yeah, no.
It's the Browns, for God's sake. Nobody wants any part of that.
No, it's bad. All right, next we have Carolina eking one out against Tampa Bay, 22-19.
Yeah, pretty exciting game. As we have come to expect, the Panthers' defense kind of closed this game out, which Jameis Winston had a very good game, 21 out of 27 for 367 and a touchdown, and spread the ball around pretty well to like 8 different guys.
I was going to say, Evans got hurt in that game, I believe. And
he had a $107 by the time he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then he spread it around to a whole bunch of guys. Brait, Humphreys, Freddie Martino, Charles Sims. I mean, it just kind of worked the ball over the hill. Very, very efficient game. Ended up turning the ball over at the end, and that's kind of what stands out about this game. Unfortunately, is that meltdown that he had at the end of the game, and actually kind of like charged through one of his own team's security guys, wanted to go back out on the field and
almost get a fist fight.
Yeah, basically he kind of went from being mad at the officials to mad at everybody, and wanting to fight his own guys, wanting to fight a security guy in a suit. And it's like, Winston's, I think more and more it's starting to emerge that Winston has not turned the corner in terms of maturity.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and I was actually wondering, we talked about this before, like, does Winston at some point have to just get out of Florida to get out?
Maybe it's the best thing to go far, far away.
To get away from where he's like the golden child. You know what I mean? And just
where he's like the kid that had the silver spoon in his mouth.
Right. He's kind of right. He's kind of like the big man on campus still, but he's not in school anymore is the problem. So maybe you could bring in another quarterback. You have some good receivers there. Yeah, I agree with Chris. Winston will stay if Gruden comes back because it's too appealing of a possibility. The possibilities are just going to be too exciting.
Oh yeah.
For to change it. If Gruden comes in, Gruden will make it work. Gruden's dealt with Keyshawn Johnson for God's sake, And
Warren Sapp and all those personalities.
Yes. Yeah, and he dealt with the Raiders as an entire organization. Dal Davis, so yeah, he knows how to handle people. But I think that definitely, Winston still, little slow developmentally in the maturity phase.
I agree, and then I don't know if everyone saw it. The 4th down play that Carolina wins this game on was unbelievable because Cam Newton takes the snap and fumbles the snap right in front of his center and picks it up and runs it in for the game-winning score, which was one of the crazier things you probably would have ever seen.
Right, because for one thing, he's the only guy that can advance that fumble.
Yes.
If a Panther holy roller rule, thank you, Ken Stabler. He's the only guy that can advance that fumble if it's even recovered by a Panther. So it's just one of those, like weird lucky bounces, I guess you would call it.
Oh, definitely.
But Cam Newton, I mean, say what you will about him, he's a very determined guy. There are moments when he really wills his team to victory, and I like it when I like that Cam Newton when I see him just using the sheer force of his will and his physical ability to take over a game or take over a play. That's when I really enjoy watching him.
Right. All right. Next, we have the Saints beating up on Atlanta at home, 23-13.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I don't think the Falcons are going to make the playoffs. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you guys in the chat think about that. I don't think Atlanta's going to make it. And once again here, just looking stagnantly inconsistent on offense. Julio Jones, of course, he had a big game and somewhat to be expected. But
it's just been
what say you? I mean, I don't think they're getting in. I really don't think they're getting in.
It's possible. They've just had a bad year overall, especially Ryan. Like, he's reverted back to his one game good, one game bad, one game mediocre. You know what I mean? Like, and you mentioned this the other day that they feel like they should go get someone that actually was like under Kyle Shanahan when he ran that offense so that they can actually run Kyle Shanahan's offense.
They're still trying to, I mean, sometimes you can do that. Sometimes especially when you have an intelligent quarterback, which I believe Ryan is, you can continuate that. But what they need right now is exactly what you said. And I know, some may cringe at this, but I think the obvious choice would be to get Gary Kubiak back in there, who's obviously, in my opinion, is a better coordinator than coach. I mean, but everything that you can say about him, I think pretty much everywhere where he's run the offense would be pretty happy to have him back.
Yeah,
I think Atlanta would be happy to have him. Right, I think Atlanta would be happy to have him back. I think Atlanta would be happy to have him. I think the Ravens would be happy to have him back right about now. I think it's pretty clear-cut situation. They can't run the offense without the coordinator. Sometimes that just happens.
I agree, Lance. They haven't recovered from the Super Bowl.
No, that's true, Lance. I mean, Ryan certainly hasn't because
he's
from the moment he
in like meltdown mode ever since.
From the moment he threw that falling back floating interception right after we just got done saying how he had turned all that around. Ever since then, all through this entire season, the inconsistency, the turnovers in the red zone, the flubbed snaps, the miscues, it's all there. It's all back. It's all come back.
Like tenfold.
And it's really kind of sad because they're getting a better pass rush now. Their secondary is still pretty good. That Deion Jones, I think he's the hybrid linebacker of the future. That guy that can play physically but also can run up and down the field, cover guys all up and down the seams.
Yeah, man, and that I'm not sure how to pronounce his first name. Kewan O'Neal, the safety they have, he's nasty.
Yeah, I mean he's going to get better too. I mean
they have some talent, like you said. They're just doing dumb shit.
Right, and they have pass rush, Beasley and this other guy, I can't think of his name, the guy who had the 6-sack game there. He's been vastly improved, but I just think that they have the tools, and that's true, Lance. The Falcons' pass dropping has shot through the roof this year.
And like he's saying, Julio Jones, he dropped big drops this year. He had one in that game on Sunday.
That's true, and they've already more than doubled their drop total from last season. I mean, I think they had like a dozen as a team for the whole year last year, and they're approaching 30 now.
Yikes!
So It's. I think it's. I think going into the game Sunday, it was like 26 as opposed to 12 or something like that.
Yeah,
and that has to have a huge effect too on a quarterback's confidence. Like, I know I can get the ball, get there. Can the SOB catch the damn thing?
Yeah, and I mean, what can we say about the Saints? They're just kind of almost on cruise control.
Yeah, well, the Saints are a very well-rounded team. I mean, when they need their pass rush to step up with Cameron Jordan and company, they do that. Their secondary can make big plays. They can pound the ball. They can throw the ball down the field. They can play the short game and turn the short game into the long game with little stuff to Ginn and to Kamara. I mean, they can pretty much they've got the talent pool to do it all. But I have to give Peyton credit. He's making good use of all that. I mean, they can win this kind of a game, a 23-13. They can win a higher scoring game. They can get defensive stops when they need them. They're a dangerous team. I have to say at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, next we have the Redskins beating the Denver Broncos 27-11.
Yeah, I guess we could maybe call this the should have been more meaningful bowl for week 16, because this game, kind of like the Washington Redskins game last week with who was it, Arizona, should have been a lot more meaningful than it actually was.
Yes.
So I don't know what you take out of all this, except that they Washington is a team with a quarterback, at least for now, and in the last 2 weeks they've played a team without one, so I guess you could say that's kind of it.
I was going to say you could call this this game the tryout game, where Kirk Cousins shows him, hey, see what I can do? I could do it on your team.
Yeah, between what you're reading and what I'm hearing, I think you have to build a pretty strong case that Cousins is not coming back.
Yeah, no. I mean, let's be honest. The Redskins, regardless of them potentially finishing 8-8, are a fucking dumpster fire because Cousins is probably going to leave. There's rumors that Gruden's either going to get fired or he's going to leave. And then, all the other shit that they have on their roster. It's just a mess.
Yeah, and there have been some... I mean, I will say one thing, and I don't make injury excuses for teams. They did get smashed pretty hard defensively with the injury bug, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But they also, they also made some moves that, looking back now, can you really afford to get rid of Deshaun Jackson and the coffee server? What's his name? Garcon?
Yeah.
Can you really afford to do that? In retrospect, considering the season that Who Wants Chowder had, Who Wants Crowder, he had a very disappointing season. The tight end situation is dicey because Reed never stays healthy,
and Vernon Davis is getting up there.
I mean, when Vernon Davis and Chris Thompson, that other running back, are your top two passing weapons, somebody deserves a lot of credit, but you also have to say somebody deserves kind of a smack in the back of the head, like, well, what the hell did you do that for? Why'd you set me up with that?
And that right. Running back they've had filling in since he got hurt, Peelin, or however you say it, he actually hasn't been too shabby.
Pirine.
Thank you.
They say it Pirine. Yeah, Lance is right though. Pryor did not work out there.
That was a disaster.
Yeah, Pryor even admitted himself, I've sucked this year. So,
Well, props to him for at least admitting it.
Out of the mouth of babes.
Here's the interesting thing to me. And I know you could care less because they're in your division, but
I always care.
Does Denver's coach survive this season? Like, I mean, do they fire him at the end of the year?
He's a very someone mentioned in the chat last week that he was a candidate for one and donedency. I'm not necessarily convinced completely of that yet. Although he so far has given me the impression that he is not a good team CEO as what a head coach needs to be.
He
does not seem to be
overwhelmed at times.
He does. He does seem to have too much on his plate. So he could be another candidate for go back to being a coordinator, and you can work a long time in this league. But having said that, not having a quarterback can kind of offers coaches an artificial excuse
an out
to a certain extent, right? And so Simeon $630,000 this year. So I mean that there's not a lot. I don't know what they're going to do about Lynch and Osweiler, the man who gives rousing speeches to no one. the great monologue. You call that a monologue, right? When it's just like one person, nobody's
he's just rambling away and no one gives a shit.
The great monologuer. Yeah, maybe he could do like one-man shows on Broadway or something. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys in the chat think, but I think definitely Denver, other than Oakland, was maybe the most disappointing team in the AFC, and that's
like Lance said, Osweiler can retire now from all the money Houston gave him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I just Elway's not going to tolerate very much of this, so I think maybe that's what tips it in favor of this guy being gone.
That's what I was curious about. All right. Next, we have the Rams beating the Titans 27-23.
Yeah, man, the Titans coming up
small
short these last 2 weeks has made this playoff thing a little bit more interesting than it probably needed to be. So let's take a look at Marcus Mariota first. Not a good game here. 22 of 39, 275, an interception, no touchdowns. Murray gets hurt in this game. Granted, you have Henry waiting in the wings, but it's interesting to note that those two guys averaged about 3.1 yards a carry Sunday against the Rams' run defense. It's not supposed to be very good. But you have to ask yourself right now, I mean, the Titans are still, I think they control their own destiny, but I don't know what kind of playoff team they really, really are if they were to get in. I would have to maybe say I would like Buffalo's chances or definitely the Ravens' chances, of winning a playoff game more so than I would like Tennessee's chances right now.
No, I agree. And I agree with Chris that Mariota needs more talent around him.
Yeah, I agree with that, Chris. It was mentioned in the chat last week that maybe Mariota was approaching bust status, and I just think until you give him some more weapons, I don't think you can lay that at his feet just yet.
And I agree with you, Lance. I think Henry actually should have been the number one running back there this year, but they kind of just stuck with Murray for the time being, and they kind of flip-flopped them,
Yeah, Henry came in and filled in admirably in that other game that Murray had to leave early with injury. I don't know that I would say that I think it was wrong to make Murray the guy this year, but definitely next year. I think you look to the future and you start Henry, and if Murray is still there, he's not a bad change of pace guy. That's not a bad bench running back to have at your disposal.
No. And I'll say this, like I told you, I'm really starting to, especially after this game, I think Gurley is the MVP or is making serious consideration for the MVP.
This is just not a McVay thing anymore.
No.
But, you have to seriously, this guy had 32 touches for 276 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's rushing and receiving combined yards.
That's all the touches. Yeah, that's 32 touches for 276. I mean, good Lord, can they teach the guy to return kicks? The guy is a machine.
That's college football stuff there.
He is an absolute machine, and I don't know that you can seriously take the definition of MVP and not at least consider this kid to be at least tied for the MVP as of right now.
Yeah. I completely agree. I was just like, the dude's just playing at an all-worldly level right now.
Absolutely. And it's like one of those things where, what do we say the best guys always do? You know you have to stop him, and he gets it done anyway.
Or they say the cream rises to the top.
You think, Tennessee's defensive coordinator's name just escaped me, excuse me. Think he does the... Yeah, Dick
LeBeau.
Thank you. You think he didn't know coming into this game Curley had to be stopped?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, the guy's been involved in football for 60 years, and look what he did to him.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, yeah, it's just like video game stuff there. All right.
I'll tell you what's going to hurt. Oh, before we go, losing the kicker is going to hurt them, though.
Yes, Zerloin losing him. That really hurts them.
Because they kick way too many field goals as it is. And his range, he's one of those guys, I could hit a 60-yarder. That may hurt them in a playoff game.
No, I agree with you. All right, next we have the Chargers beating the Jets 14-7.
Yeah, I mean, once again, while the Chargers are still mathematically in the playoff hunt, we'll talk maybe more about the details later. So we knew they would really try to come out of this with it. The Jets are still playing with pride. I mean, the Jets have played some tough games this year, and I always you go all the way back to when Oakland smashed them. I think it was in week 2 or 3, and ever since then, to a large degree, they have turned it around to great effect. And not to just kind of play the old plug-and-play thing, but, this is like one of those games you can't help wondering if Petty doesn't play and McCown does, maybe the Jets actually pull this game out.
Yeah, I agree with Lance. I mean, they're a surprise in the sense that we thought they were going to be really bad. The Jets are surprised that they're 5-10.
Yes, that's actually an accomplishment for that team, considering what we all...
And the talent that they really don't have.
Yeah, and I mean, and of course, Bowles' status has been that's been sort of a soap opera. Is he gone? Is he this? Is he that?
Everything I've read is that Wilkerson has been a big problem there, and they're going to cut him at the end of the season.
Yeah, I heard that too. And so that means... basically, that whole interior defensive line that was so vaunted for all that time, Joey, it's basically going to be dissolved.
And the funny thing is, I read they traded the wrong guy because Richardson has said he's been out in Seattle, but he never wanted to leave New York and has a desire to come back.
Right.
So how ironic would that be that they traded him out there, get a wide receiver... he goes out there for a year and then re-signs with them.
Oh, absolutely. And forgive me, guys, I got frozen out of the chat for the time being. But yeah, what Chris said about the Bears needing a kicker, that's true too. They have to be kicking themselves, pun intended,
letting
Robbie Gould go. Yeah, that was an abysmal decision.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, next we have, and this game was the shocker of the week. San Francisco upsetting Jacksonville at home 44-33.
It is shocking that they would basically put 44 up on ostensibly the best defense in the league, but other than the fact that it was Jacksonville, this is getting less and less surprising week by week. You know what I mean?
Yes.
San Francisco really seems to be starting to fit the bill of a team that literally was a quarterback away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we say that, and there are usually a lot more intangibles involved than that, but I honestly think in this case, that really seems to be panning out.
And I got to give it, like Lance said, Garoppolo's for real, and he's impressing me because he's doing this with, like, guys you've never fucking heard of.
Yeah, I was laughing at his one press conference a couple of weeks ago why he had to explain how Goodwin and some other
Kittle.
Returner, yeah, some other guy on some other receiver, like why they were difficult to cover, and he could barely contain his laughter himself. I mean, it was just an inane question, but it's absolutely true. You know, I think I'm thinking Garcon's going to go back there, so that'll be good. But
well,
yeah,
he'll be a good veteran leadership that they could use.
Absolutely, and
then you figure they'll probably add another offensive weapon either in the draft or in free agency, and I think they're a team that's going to be on a definite upswing next year.
They are certainly looking like it.
I mean, and this kid, I mean, granted, it's a small sample size, but every game Garoppolo started, he's won.
And and not only is he winning them, he's putting up long-term starting quarterback type efficiency and productivity. It's not like, oh, he's just getting out there and winning the games, like, and they're mucking out these games. No, they're winning games in the passing game.
Yeah,
he is making big plays.
And real quick before we move on, how do you think if number 12 doesn't hang around another 5 years like they think they're saying he's going to, like, just let's say for, you know, shits and giggles, that Brady retires after this season, how much egg do they have on their face that they traded this guy out there?
Well, you know, here's the thing, and we've been this is kind of been an ongoing discussion. And guys, again, I apologize, I got frozen out of the chat, so I can't see the chat right now. But I hope you guys contribute to this. You know, what they basically did was sort of a very, almost, I want to say, smacks of arrogance.
Yep.
Now, there are things starting to leak out now, and this is very unusual for New England's tent, that Belichick was actually ready to be done with Brady and possibly maybe even trade him. Now, I don't know how much of that is firmly true. Like, okay, I'm not saying he was reaching out to try and trade Brady, but what I'm saying is I'm getting indications that Belichick was looking beyond Brady pretty sincerely. You follow what I'm saying?
And that's shocking that got out.
Yeah,
that's true.
So yeah, and again, I mean, you know, I'm going to want to watch that tagline and see if there are a little more legitimate sources for it. But there is definitely some scuttlebutt out there that was the case. Now, if Brady comes back, and like you said, this could cause some real tension. If things start to go downhill, or if he drops off a cliff, or if he gets hurt, or other things happen, because if you think in the back of his mind, Belichick was already ready to move on, I don't know. So let's wait and see what more comes out about that, if it comes out.
Right, I agree with you. And then, like Lance said, at one point the Browns offered 2 first-round picks for Garoppolo, and they turned him down, and then they had to settle for a second.
Then they settled for a second, so they also So they kind of hedged themselves out of the best possible deal. And, I mean, if something happens to Brady, you got Hoyer sitting back there. I don't think anybody who's a Patriot supporter is too excited about that.
Yeah. One quick thing I want to mention about the Jaguars is Bortles turned back into old Bortles, and I want to kind of just see after this game, because they got basically punched in the mouth, how they respond after this game.
He was also not to apologize for him, but he was also in a very rare situation for him, which is having to put up a lot of points to try and win a football game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it was like, well, yeah, he did have kind of a game that reminds us of the old Blake Bortles, but we all knew it would happen eventually. He would have a crappy game. So now, like, I agree with you. Let's see what step he takes from here. Because there was no doubt this kind of game was going to happen. And it's better that it happened now than in the first playoff game or something. You know what I mean? It's fine. So let's see how they clean it up now. You know?
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Seattle eliminating the Dallas Cowboys 21-12.
I mean, you and I both picked Seattle last week. You can't say that we're surprised by this.
I will say I'm surprised at how it happened.
In what way?
Where Dallas basically dominated this almost entire game except for a handful of plays, and those handful of plays basically killed them.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat understand you. I'm not particularly surprised that Dallas controlled the line of scrimmage so well and ran the ball so well.
No, I just mean that they shut them down more offensively is what I meant.
Yeah, they did do a very good job with that. Actually,
I would think they were under 200 yards for the entire game of total offense.
If that is correct, then I think that what you have to say is, that they kind of lost this with intangibles.
Yep.
Which Dez Bryant, I mean, directly responsible for 2 huge turnovers in this game.
Yeah, the pick six will kill you, and then like you just said, Dez bitching for the ball, and then as soon as he gets the ball, the very first play, he catches it and he fumbles it.
And that one interception went right through his hands, right through him.
And what was funny, I'm assuming this was a subtle dig at Dez after the game. Prescott said, he's like, well, I need to put the ball in a better spot. Maybe I should just throw the ball right toward his helmet and his face mask, like right in front of his hands, if you could see me in the chat. So it almost hits him right in the face, so he has to catches it.
Right, like throw it like in such a way that it like literally gets wedged in his visor, like in his helmet. Yeah, like maybe if I can just stick it in there, then we won't have to rely on his.
And
hand.
I agree with you, Lance. They got away from the run. That was the one thing that killed him when they had first and goal at like the 3 or 4 late in that game, and they threw it 3 times in a row, and then Bailey misses the field goal.
Oh yeah, that's a bad scene. Yeah, and Bailey's dealing with a groin injury, but that's another thing too that's hurt them down the stretch, not being able to make kicks.
Right, but it shouldn't have never even come to that. If you should have gone what got you to the dance.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. They did get away from the run.
Yeah, I agree with you, Garrett's time is up, in my opinion, as an outsider, but Jerry Jones has already publicly endorsed him twice that he's not going anywhere, so that's a freaking disaster because he's just basically Jerry Jones' puppet.
I think Garrett is more than out of time. I mean, he's beyond out of time.
I agree with you. If I was a fan of them, I would be so incredibly frustrated.
He's a corpse rotting in the ground, and they just refuse to throw dirt over him. This is way past that. And the sad thing about it is, as long as he polishes Jones's apples, I guess, and allows him to be the de facto, dictator of the organization, Jones is going to accept that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see here. Next, we have Arizona beating up on the Cardinals. Arizona beating up on the Giants, 23-0.
Not entirely untrue what you said there. Arizona has kind of beat up on the Cardinals all year.
Yeah, they beat up on themselves.
They really kind of have, but I don't know what you make of a game here. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams that are, going to be quarterback shopping, obviously. Neither team
that annoys me about this game.
Sure.
And it's almost like Spagnuolo is giving like lip service to the fans in a way. Why in God's name are you playing Eli Manning in this kind of game, and then next week, because he's already said he's playing? I mean, obviously, I know Eli has the right to decide, when he should go and all this and that. However, you have to see what this kid has that you drafted. The season's lost. Let him play the last 2 games.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with where you're coming from. However, well, I guess I just don't know like what you can really meaningfully find out in these last couple games.
I know, but you can at least see if there's like flashes where if you're a good talent evaluator, you can say, okay, well, when all our guys come back, we can use him, or we can't, or you know what I mean?
Somewhat, I guess you can, but I guess you and I are kind of in sort of a disagreement mode about the probative value of starting the youngster the last two games. I just don't see,
I
especially
know.
with all the receivers. I mean, other than the fact, I mean, can he read basic progressions? Can he make an NFL throw? I mean, these are things that
You should know by now.
you should already know. And then when it comes into the specifics of really wanting to know more about the nuances of the game, I just feel like you want to have a better situation and be surrounded with your true supporting cast, because this would not be him, trying out, so to speak, with a full deck. I mean, I don't even know if that would really be fair. He's throwing balls to Roger Lewis, and I just don't know if that's yeah.
This game was just, like whatever. Like the only true fans of your team would watch it.
I mean, if Fitzgerald, I mean, 9 catches, 119-yard, good game. Both defenses shut down the run, especially the Cardinals. But this is one of those things like you watch this because your team is one of the teams involved.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the 2 Monday Christmas Day games. The Steelers rolling over Houston 34-6.
Yeah, so I guess Dean and other Steelers fans will be happy. The Steelers actually did not play down to competition for once, and they just steamrolled a team and literally destroyed them. Ben had a nice game, 20-29, 226, 2 touchdowns. Bell 69 on the ground, 28 in the air. So just about 100-yard game altogether. How many sacks did they have? I'm counting 7 as I go through.
Yeah, it was bad.
And when a defensive back gets 3 sacks, that's sad. I'm laughing, but it's sad.
It was bad. The only thing that went well for the Texans in this game is Alfred Blue had a 100-yard rushing game, and Hopkins made a nice circus catch for a touchdown in garbage time.
Yeah, Blue did run the ball well, and I like him. I think that he can be a very serviceable back just about anywhere. But yeah, he did have a nice game, and but the bottom line is 34-6, and this season's just kind of, if Bill Bryan's future was hinging at all on this game, which I kind of, for his sake, hope it's not. But if it was, then
he's in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, Lance, we did talk about the Harrison signing at the top of the show, and we're throwing conspiracies around. I think they just signed him to troll Pittsburgh and to get a spy in the house to say, talk about like what does this receiver not like? What name does this guy not like being called? Or who gets annoyed? Who gets annoyed when you kick him in the shins? And
those kind of things. Yeah,
that kind of crap. I mean, and some schematic stuff too. But it's a total troll move.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Lance.
And the final game of the week, we had the Eagles surviving against the Raiders, 19-10.
So, that I'll have a little more to say about this game, because of the Raiders thing, right?
Go for it.
And I want to bring up something to you that, do you remember the information that we brought up about some key matchups that the Raiders had this year and how they fared in those matchups and whose fault who's because the defense of the Raiders has been getting hammered all year.
Correct.
But I want to talk for a minute about some key matchups that the Raiders have had this year and the results, and you guys tell me, okay. And these are key games against good teams, but they play the Redskins, they put up 10 points. They play the Ravens, they put up 17. They play the Bills, they put up 14. They play the Patriots, they put up 8. They play I'm talking about the second game with the Chiefs. They play the Chiefs in a very important game in which they could have taken over the division, and they put up 15. And then another marquee matchup, Eagles 10, and I guess you could call Dallas originally would have been a marquee matchup. They only put up 17.
I know. The problem is the offense, not the defense. I know exactly what you're going to ask me.
Guys, we really need to if you follow the Raiders or even just discuss this team's woes for good or unkind reasons, we really need to get off the defense's butt and start looking at Derek Carr's horrendous play, about the offensive line's inconsistent play, and about Todd Downing's ineptitude as a coordinator. And, of course, all the drops by the wide receivers. This offense, in those, I think I mentioned 6 or 7 marquee games, failed to score 20 points.
Yeah.
This offense scored 30 or more points 8 times last year and went 8-0. They have scored 30-plus points twice this year. And ironically, they've won both of those games. So they're 10-0 in the last 2 years when they score 30. But here's my thing. If the defense is so bad, why have the Raiders not scored over 30 and lost? Why did they never lose 42-30?
Yeah.
They're really not that bad. And I know I probably watch a lot more film than most of the teams. Most guys do, because that's my team. But you got to try. And since Pagano's come in, a lot of things have improved right off the bat. Like Sean Smith's become a shutdown press corner again. Boom. Look at Jeffrey last night.
Yeah, which was shocking.
And that was not and that's been ever since. But
I will say this.
Say something about the Eagles right now. I mean, because I know they're your team, and maybe you want to comment on.
When I had a time to think about that game, digest it, after and slept on it and everything, I heard Seth Joyner today on local radio, which I normally don't listen to, but I like his non bullshit, PC approach. He said Foles last night looked like the old Rams Nick Foles. Like, he got really shaky back there for some reason, and just he looked like a mess.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly it was. I mean, I think having Wisniewski not play hurt, because that left side of the line right now is really bad. And I think if they would have stayed more consistent with the run, because the one scoring drive they had, they ran the ball, I think, 8 or 9 out of the 12 plays, or they only threw it maybe once or twice on the entire drive. And then they kind of got away from that and got pass happy, and let Foles drop back, which is not a big thing of his. Like you said, he was trying to be Wentz.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was trying to be Wentz last night, but I think one of the things that we talked about going into this last stretch of games is that he can't afford to be Wentz. But my question that I want to pose to you and the listeners of the show, and we talked privately about this last night, is, did the Eagles fall in love a little bit with Wentz's pyrotechnics?
Yes.
And develop a sense of expectation of that.
I agree with that.
And has that hurt them over the past couple weeks?
Yeah. I will say this, for the people that were complaining about the defense saved their ass last night.
Absolutely. And they are a very resilient team.
Well, they gave up the one blown coverage on the long Cooper touchdown, and then after that, it was really nothing.
And the slant and go didn't really hurt them again after that terribly.
Right. They've been getting killed on that the last however many weeks. And then I read there's a possibility Sidney Jones might play on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, Sidney Jones is the cornerback from, I believe it's the University of Washington, that blew out his Achilles tendon at the Combine and was just recently cleared to practice within the last few weeks. Yeah, Peterson teased that he could go.
Huh, okay.
So that I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, throwing a young kid like that into this kind of situation. You know what I mean?
I don't know either.
I think that's setting him up for failure.
I don't think it could. I don't like the idea, but that's just kind of my mindset in general.
No, I agree. I think you could kill the kid's confidence permanently.
Yeah, let's not Bobby Hoying anybody here. We're
Oh
not.
dear God! Don't. I'd rather just burn that from my memory.
Well, your team and my team both
I know. Yeah, yeah,
took apart, destroying his psyche.
yeah. That's funny. All right, I'm gonna pull up the week 17 schedule. See what we have here.
A lot of these games don't have meaning, so we should be able to
Skim through them.
Handle it efficiently. Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Green Bay traveling to Detroit.
I'll take the Lions just because they're a little more explosive offensively.
That and
it's a shame this is
said with Hundley, even though it's on the road, he's been too hot and cold.
Yeah, he'll probably be more comfortable in the Silver Dome than he is there, but still, if you have to, this is so sad that this is not a game with huge playoff implications. So that's a travesty.
All right, Chicago traveling to Minnesota.
Minnesota, and this is a game that we hope in the future will be a meaningful game. I look forward to the day when this matchup will be
and means something like it used to.
Right.
All right.
But Minnesota, easy.
Yeah. Let's see here. We have Houston traveling to Indianapolis.
Oh God. I'm gonna. I'm gonna take the Texans. On the strength of maybe being able to coax some turnovers out of Brissett. The Colts defense could do the same out of whoever the Texans put on the field, but their defense has a tendency to give up a lot of points and a lot of yards down the field, so that might give the Texans a little bit of a boost. So I'll say Houston.
Yeah. All right. Next is Cleveland at Pittsburgh.
Sorry, Cleveland. Your last opportunity to not go 0-16 is behind you now.
Yep.
And I don't care how far down the Steelers play to you. They could play blindfolded. They will beat you 9-3. So forget it.
Yeah, even if they put their third string quarterback in.
Hugh Jackson is going to be 1-31, right?
Yeah. Wow. Lance is saying they're going to win.
Cleveland gets their... Oh, yeah. Okay. I had to see it to believe it. I had to switch over to the chat. How much you putting on that game? How about you putting on that game, Lance?
All right.
Silence. Silence in the chat.
Next, we have the Jets traveling to New England.
The Patriots will mop them up. Jets season's over.
Yeah. All right. Next is the Redskins traveling to the Giants.
Redskins, because they're still playing reasonably well.
And here's
the Giants are just
I agree with you, but here's a little thing I wanted to tell you as I pulled the games up to see who's home and away. Landon Collins throwing Eli Apple under the bus.
What did he say?
He said he's a team cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he go into detail?
Hold on. I'll click on the link and see if I can get a little... Because apparently he went on the radio and said this.
I see. I thought that I'm interested to hear about that because I know Apple got criticized for getting drafted higher than his value.
He's quoted as saying that first pick, he is a cancer.
Wow.
Hold on. I'm trying to skim through it real quick.
Yeah.
He said, only one corner that needs to grow up, and we all know who that is.
Wow. Huh.
Oh, hold on. That would be the only person I would change out of our secondary group because the other guys, Cromartie and Jenkins, I love those two guys. They play hard. I love what they do.
Okay.
Wow.
So he basically process of elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Apple should shut his mouth because he was drafted much higher than his value, and
he's good as gone.
Yeah, he had to play pretty well for a while there he started to gain my respect a little bit. But if that's the case, so much for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that little tidbit of news out there. Next, we have Dallas traveling to Philly.
I gotta tell you the truth. If it wasn't for Prescott's severe slide, I could almost see them stealing this game. But I just think that Prescott is pitched like an 0 for and 2 interceptions. What is it, Joey? Like 4 times in the last month, he's gone for 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I just think that the Eagles' defense will do something sufficient to get them over the hump here.
Let me put it to you this way, and I hate saying this. Carson Wentz has more touchdown passes since he tore his ACL than Dak Prescott does since he tore his ACL.
You were mentioning that. Somebody else was putting up a meme that said that your pass rusher Barnett has more touchdowns than Prescott in the last month.
That's true.
And more than Ezekiel.
Yes.
So, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get the idea. They're not scoring touchdowns, and they're turning the ball over. So
next,
yeah.
I got Philly. Next, we have Jacksonville traveling to Tennessee.
This is very interesting because Tennessee will want to win this game to have any kind of sense of, to control they're not going to want to have to depend on the Chargers and Buffalo to lose. So, but the bounce back effect for Jacksonville, and with the front four that they have and the secondary that they have, I kind of like Jacksonville here, and I think the Titans have shown that they're sliding a little bit here in the final stanza. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
I do too. But listen to this. This is a quick news clip for you too, and another hang your head in shame with the officials.
Okay.
The NFL admitted Monday night that its officials screwed the Titans out of a successful onside kick during their Week 16 game against the Rams.
Unacceptable.
It said the vice president of football communications explained that a miscommunication between the officials and the Rams sideline is the reason why the officials didn't allow the Titans to keep the football after their surprise onside kick.
A miscommunication?
Yes. You heard it.
I have nothing to add to that.
I know, it's just abysmal.
Yeah, there's been. It would be funnier if the refereeing has not been so invasive and so inept this season.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's see here. Next, we have the Bills at Miami.
Ugh. I don't know. Buffalo needs the game, so let's say Buffalo.
Yeah, I'll go along with that because Miami's just like whatever, and Buffalo needs that game.
Yeah, and Buffalo's defense should be able to churn out a couple turnovers against your buddy Cutler. So
yeah. All right. Next, the Bengals at Baltimore.
A game that raised some note for being moved from 1 o'clock to 4:25, which has Jim Harbaugh not too happy. Having said that, I think the Ravens will win.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Bengals win just for fun, but I'll take the Ravens.
Well, maybe they'll play a hard game for their departing boss.
Yeah,
but
you never know.
Apparently the league moved this to 4:25 because they didn't want the 4:25 slot filled with quote-unquote meaningless games.
Not that this is a meaningful game per se, but I mean it is, but it isn't.
It's meaningful in that if Baltimore wins, they're in, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
Let's see here. We have Oakland at the Chargers.
I think that given the fact that Seattle will be looking for a playoff spot with some help here from Tennessee, who I think is going to lose, will be a very good motivational factor. Plus, them having one of the top 2 pass rush tandems in the league against Derek Carr, who's just really lost his way here and just kind of needs to go in the offseason, heal up physically and mentally, and reset with whoever his coordinator is going to be. I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm taking them too. Real quick, Chris brought up something interesting. I don't think they're going to do it.
Right.
There's talk within a season or two that they're going to be getting rid of the chain gangs for putting, listen to this one, for putting microchips inside the footballs for questions on where to spot the ball.
And then the Patriots hire some kind of info systems specialist to remove the chips and tinker with them to give them an extra 18 inches on each spot of the football. Yeah.
I don't see them ever getting rid of the chain gang, because everything I've ever heard is that the NFL keeps it because they like the drama of the chain gang.
I can understand that, but I think that we've all been to a point where we've seen stuff that we thought would always be there eventually go away. So I think it's whether adopting some kind of a laser system like tennis does.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think eventually, I don't know in the next 2 years, but I think a lot of times this technology goes from sounding almost science fiction-y, and then one day all of a sudden everybody's using it. So eventually I could see something happening.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Next we have Arizona traveling to Seattle.
This is an interesting game because Seattle needs this game along with some other things to happen. And this is always a bloodbath, Joey. We love to watch this. Remember the 6-6 5-point tie a couple of years ago? I mean, this is a great... I'm going to take Seattle, though, just because of quarterback situations. But I think Arizona will play hard and keep it a low-scoring game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll take Seattle. Here's another interesting one. The 49ers traveling to the Rams.
This is a lot more...
interesting than it would have been 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure. However, every team that's just kind of getting out of the basement and going on a run like this has to hit a wall somewhere. And I think that even if Garoppolo does have another monster game, I think aside from having a really good pass rush, the Rams have enough of firepower to counter that, unlike Jacksonville, despite the fact Jacksonville did score 33. But I'm going to take the Rams. I think the Niners will hit a wall this week.
I could see that, where they it's the last game of the season, and, like you said, they hit the wall. I'll take the Rams, especially because they're at home, too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's another good one. The Panthers traveling to Atlanta.
I got the Panthers winning this game because I have Atlanta. I have Atlanta getting knocked out of the playoffs.
I have the Panthers too, just because of the inconsistencies of Atlanta.
Yeah, Carolina's frenetic defense. I think they're gonna shake Ryan up enough to win the game.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. We have Kansas City traveling to Denver.
Kansas City.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say. Kansas City.
Yeah, they're cranking on all cylinders.
Another easy one for you. Saints traveling to Tampa.
Yeah, I would like to think this game could be more interesting, and maybe it could be from an offensive standpoint. There could be some big plays and some high scoring, but I ultimately think that the Saints can control both lines of scrimmage, and therefore will most likely win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, real quick, you want to go over the quick playoff scenarios before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just thought if anybody wants to chat in a comment or you want to say anything, just jump in. But I got it pulled up here. I just thought I would. I'm gonna bypass the New England and Pittsburgh crap because we know they're in, and it's just a matter of rankings. I want to get down to the teams trying to get in. So if your team needs to get in, is still not confirmed a playoff team, here's what they need. The Ravens, if they win or tie, they're in. So that Cincinnati game is a one and done. If they don't win, a Buffalo loss or a Tennessee loss will put the Ravens in, or not both. Okay, the Titans have to beat the Jaguars. Well, we don't like the chances of that too much, so that's what has to happen. Basically, I'm not going to get into ties because that's a little ridiculous. Basically, they would need Buffalo and the Chargers to lose to get in if they don't beat Jacksonville. The Chargers, they need a win and a Tennessee loss or a win and a Buffalo loss, or they need a win and they need the Ravens to win. That must play into tiebreakers somehow. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. And last but not, I'm sorry, did you want to jump in there?
No, I said that's interesting.
Yeah, and then basically if Tennessee and Buffalo were to lose, and the Chargers were to tie, which I said I was going to avoid, but I just thought that was funny because it's kind of like hitting the lottery. Okay, Buffalo needs a win and a Ravens loss, so they need help. Or they need a win and a Chargers loss combined with a Tennessee loss. So that's interesting. They need some combination of wins and losses. The easiest way for them to get in, I guess, would be for them to just win and for Baltimore to lay an egg against Cincinnati.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Other than that, they need to beat Miami and they need Oakland to beat the Chargers, which I doubt, and Jaguars to beat Tennessee, probably, maybe. And if you don't have anything to say about any of that, I'll jump right over to the NFC.
Nope, it's pretty straightforward. What we had discussed, it's probably going to end up being the Ravens, I think.
I don't see them. I don't see Cincinnati knocking them out. Okay, Atlanta and the NFC. If they win, they're in. If Seattle loses, they're in. So that's basically they can handle
dry.
They do control their own destiny, which is why I feel almost bad treating them like a team that needs help. But they do need help. They need their own help. They need to change something drastically because they're not going to beat quality teams right now with this crap. Seattle needs a win and an Atlanta loss. That's pretty much how the NFC size it up. It all comes down to those two games.
I agree. That's that would be very. It should be very interesting. I still, like I said, I think Atlanta will probably lay an egg.
I think they're out. I said this a couple weeks ago when they were on the outside looking in, and then they won that big game to get into the 5 or 6 hole. But I've never felt like Atlanta was going to get in.
Yeah. I don't know if you see that question by Chris Adams.
Yes.
He says, how quickly after the season will the Bears fire John Fox? I don't know. I think they might let him stew for a while.
I don't know, Chris. It's a good question. We talked about Fox. I talked to Joey about Fox yesterday, and you know what we mentioned before about sometimes either having a rookie quarterback or not having the quarterback that you're going to go into the future with. Sometimes that kind of puts a little more meat on the apologist sandwich, so to speak. So I don't really know. And Fox is supposed to be a defensive guy, which I don't think the Bears' defense is that bad. It's young and it's
and I just think his like way of coaching is passed him by. Like he's very old school.
And Chris makes a good point too, saying that he kind of gave this indifferent press conference after the game, like whatever the fuck, you know.
Well, he probably knows he's done, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, maybe he's just maybe he's resigned to. Maybe he thinks he's going to get fired. I'm not 100% sure, but I tend to think that if he's going to get fired, it's going to be quickly.
Okay.
If there's any delay, he has a very good chance of sticking around.
That's interesting. All right. On that note, we're going to get out of here for tonight. Don't forget to check out our social media pages. You can find it on Facebook.com/American Sports Connection or on Twitter at ASC Pods. Also, I moved up into the world on Instagram as well. You can find it. There's all kind of cool little videos from shows and different things I've been to. On Instagram, it's at all one word American Sports Connection, just like it sounds. You can also find all our content on the B Plus Player Radio. Best way to find them right now is on Twitter at B Plus Radio. So on that note, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that stuff, and we'll see you back next week. Have a good night, everybody.